This is Sunday Live with Jeff Koinange and Olive Barrows.
And welcome to the third Sunday in September. We have a great show for you tonight.
Yes, we do. We have a continuing special report on Ruto at 2.
That's right. And of course, our usual features, Citizen Planet, the works. So, hey, it's going to be a good show.
Plus, we get to hear what was said today. The gloves are off.
Literally
on the political
off.
scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice pink.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Very much.
Start tweeting at Koinange Jeff.
At O Barrows at Citizen TV Kenya.
Hashtag
Sunday Live.
Sunday Live begins right now.
Tonight.
That viper on your hand, Your Excellency, the viper, the snake in your government, please shake it off.
Ishungwa calls for the removal of Deputy President as Gachagua skips President Ruto's event in Nyeri.
Kenya Mpox preparedness. Border counties of Busia and Kajiado listed as counties with highest Mpox risk as Kenya draws a 6 billion shilling response plan.
Agony of residents of noisy neighborhoods as Nairobi authorities relax on environment.
2 years of President Ruto's presidency, tracking President Ruto economic headache.
And welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Eula Nzale. Now, the rift between President William Ruto and his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, was laid bare at Gachagua's home turf in Nyeri, where he conspicuously skipped the head of state's visit to his backyard.
President Ruto warning his principal assistant, against early campaigns as the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, and that is none other than Kimani Ichung'wah, called for Gachagua's removal from government by likening him to a snake.
Oh, my goodness.
Clinging on his master's hand to block him from serving Kenyans.
Our very own Seth Olale with the latest standoff between the president and his embattled deputy.
The Ruto-Gachagua political war came to the open at the deputy president's backyard in Nyeri when Gachagua, the host, skipped the event. What was to be Gachagua's official seat next to the head of state remained unoccupied throughout the church service at AIPCA, Central Western Archdiocese in Nyeri County. In what appeared to be an open rebuke against his deputy, President Ruto told his principal assistant to keep off early campaigns and instead focus on delivering the government's agenda to Kenyans.
Tafadhali, tupunguze mambo ya 2027. Huko 2027 ni Mungu na wananchi ndio wataamua. Lakini sasa tuko na miaka mitatu. Hii miaka mitatu haitakuwa tu ya kupanga vile utashinda tena 2027. Kwani mtu anachaguliwa tu, akichaguliwa siku hiyo hiyo anaanza tena kupanga vile atashinda uchaguzi hiyo ingine.
It did not end there. A visibly agitated head of state warning his deputy against trading his guns on the 2027 presidential elections, which he said was still 3 years away.
Let us focus ourselves on delivering the commitments we made to the people of Kenya, not on how to win the next election. Na hata hiyo ukiweka mawazo yako yote 2027, na Mungu akiamua mambo ingine utadu.
But even before the Nyeri event, the onslaught against Ruto-Gachagua was earlier launched by the leader of majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, who during a church service at Steward Revival Pentecostal Church along Outer Ring Road in Nairobi demanded Gachagwa's ouster from government, likening him to a snake that is clinging on to his master's hand.
That viper on your hand, Your Excellency, the viper, the snake in your government, please shake it off. Shake it off, Your Excellency. Shake it off, not for your own sake so that it doesn't bite you. Shake off the snake on your hand so that your hand may do what the Lord purposed that hand to do.
With the heated political temperatures at the DP's backyard, not even his close ally, the host governor Mutahi Kahiga, came to the DP's rescue, pledging loyalty to the president.
As the governor of the county of this Nyeri, mahali ulituacha, hapo ndipo bado tulipo. You are in our hearts, like we have always said.
The latest onslaught against Ruto-Gachagua coming even as more leaders disassociate themselves with Gachagua, aligning themselves with Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki.
Nani atuunganishe kwenye maendeleo? Tukasema sasa na yeye Kindiki, manake hapa maendeleo iko na kuna kuunganisha hapa na yeye Kindiki uganisha maendeleo.
Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua has told those who've disassociated from him and declared their allegiance to CS Kithure Kindiki to wait for the 2027 general election.
That's right. Now, speaking at a centenary celebration at the Our Lady of Sorrows Baricho Catholic Parish in India in Kirinyaga County, that he continues to enjoy the support of the electorate and that Mount Kenya is so solid, contrary to the belief of those opposed to him. Take a listen.
Actions speak louder than words. And by his actions on Sunday, the Deputy President, Ruto-Gachagua, demonstrated that he will not be pushed around.
Na ndio hata mimi nilikuwa nakimbia kanisa ingine Nyeri, lakini nikaona sherehe imefana sana.
The Deputy President skipping a presidential function in his political backyard of Nyeri, the launch of the African Independent Pentecostal Church of Africa, Central Western Archdiocese, at which his boss, President William Ruto, was in attendance. Gachagua facing an outright revolt from a number of MPs from Mount Kenya and other leaders who voiced their choice of Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki over Gachagua as their leader. And while Gachagua preached the Mount Kenya unity gospel,
Hii ni wakati ya kazi. As far as I know, uchaguzi uliisha. Ama iko uchaguzi? The next election is 2027. Nyinyi watu ya Baricho, mulinipatia kura tukiwa na rais. Vile governor amesema kila mtu afanye kazi yake.
it was evident that it is a unity that does not extend to the presidency, with Gachagua suffering the humiliation of Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru delivering a message from the president. Gachagua, however, had the support of a handful of MPs from Mount Kenya.
Na sisi tunaomba kila kiongozi ambaye yako hapa amechaguliwa mlima aheshimu Rigiji. Tunajua walienda kule Nyahururu wakafanya declaration. Wakasema wanafanya mikataba. Sisi tunawaambia hawa wananchi 2027 ndio wataamua.
Ukimuona mtu akikwambia ati tutafute kiongozi mwingine wa mlima na tuko na Ruto-Gachagua, mwambie rudi nyuma.
Gachagua again warning the Mount Kenya People's representatives who've taken a stance against him that they are out of touch with the electorate.
And why to aya? No bone makirete ugwishire nde andu akegu. Katiguo. Gutire ndu mato. Maundu maya mothe marathie na mbere inyo murado babaru me bahasha ne horwama kule do mutoi tiro do mugo ni kwero no mudu ando akire nyaga na ando akire mageke gito ne ando oge muno.
That story by our very own Olive Burrows. Now, President William Ruto calling for a stop in early campaigns is typical of what goes around comes around.
When he served as deputy president, he was a thorn in the flesh of his boss with early campaigns, and now his deputy seems to be serving him a dose of his own medicine. Stephen Little has the details.
Once a master of defiance when he served as retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's deputy, Ruto is now calling for a political tone down. In veiled attacks on his deputy Ruto-Gachagua in Nyeri on Sunday, President Ruto ironically is now the one calling for a stop of early campaigns.
Tupunguze mambo ya 2027. Huko 2027 ni Mungu na wananchi.
President Ruto's remarks rekindles the struggle and the hard time his former boss Uhuru Kenyatta endured as he sought to tame his deputy, who was literally running wild ahead of the 2022 general election.
Mimi nataka niwaulize watu wa Nyeri. Nyinyi mnataka tubadilishe katiba kwanza, tuongeze vyeo na mamlaka ya viongozi.
Ruto seemingly closing a short history of campaign dirty tricks between presidents and their deputies. Ruto-Gachagua, who is now regarded as the rebel-in-chief in President Ruto's administration, is walking a similar path.
And vile governor umesema, I am with you 100%. And do I to I am.
From assembling allied members of parliament and causing divisions within the ruling party, Gachagua is already hitting the ground running. President Ruto roots for a stop of early campaigns weeks after he formed a broad-based cabinet with members from the Orange Democratic Movement and his return on the sunroof addressing what he termed as development meetings.
Watu ya Kondele. Oh. Kumbe ni nyinyi.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
For close to 3 months now, Deputy President Ruto-Gachagua has been a man under siege. On the second anniversary of his political marriage with President William Ruto, 69 members of parliament from his own backyard of Mount Kenya came out to publicly break ranks with him, declaring Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki as their linkman to the National Executive.
That's right. Now, the MPs who once planned Gachagua's ouster motion have labelled the man who fashioned himself as a truthful man and as a tribal lord with a narrow perspective of national issues. And as our political correspondent reporter, Emmanuel Toh, now explains, Gachagua is walking the same path walked by his boss, President William Ruto, in just 2 years in the first term of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Take a listen.
Perform my functions in the said office.
May I request that we take it again?
When he took oath of office on the 13th of September 2022, Deputy President Geoffrey Ruto-Gachagua could not have imagined that one day things could take such a drastic turn. A short 2 years ago, Gachagua was glowing with political love, promising absolute faithfulness, loyalty and obedience, and he spoke from the bottom of his heart.
From the bottom of my heart, to be available, to assist you, to manage the affairs of our great nation. I'll serve you with loyalty and dedication. And the job ahead of us is not a joke.
And Gachagua carried the honeymoon well, protecting his territory and partner with pointed fierceness. He was particularly hawk-eyed in keeping potential suitors and political exes at bay.
Hiyo ikulu nimeweka mitego kila kona, kila kona, kila pale, kila. Kila mahali nimeweka na niko na watu wa kunipigia simu. Wakionekana tu karibu naambiwa. Kwa sababu uwezi mtu ameharibu serikali 4 umkubalie akuje ya 5. Si ataharibu.
However, 2 years on, the self-proclaimed truthful man is facing new realities. A majority of MPs in his own Mount Kenya backyard want him vanquished. This week, 69 MPs from the Mount Kenya East and Mount Kenya West regions denouncing Gachagua as their kingpin and linked to the executive, throwing their weight behind Interior CS Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki.
To the national government to be the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration, Professor Kithure Kindiki, whose responsibilities in the executive includes the coordination of national government functions across the country.
This picture of the supporters of the DP and that of a section of Mount Kenya West MPs painting the grim realities on the ground for the first-time MP from Madeira. The DP Friday coming out guns blazing, warning those plotting his downfall of dire political consequences, maintaining even without the representatives of the people and the ground was still with him. And Gachagua's woes, just like those of his boss under retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, have escalated after the entry of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga into government through the broad-based transfer window. The political move by President William Ruto to appoint CSs from Odinga's traditional bases of Nyanza, Western and Coast as a safeguard for the 2027 contest. Before the changes in cabinet, Gachagua had lamented of signs of an abusive marriage, claiming he was denied official transport.
Nilichelewa, I had matatizo with my transport arrangements. Alafu ikaingia mambo ya hewa. Nikachelewa kutoka, nikakwama pale kati ya Longonot na Naivasha karibu 2 hours. Ndio nifike hapa.
During the period of turbulence, the number 2 accused some junior officers in the president's corner of undermining him.
Shida ile unaona is some people who are friends with the president also want to be my boss. Inawezekana? Atuwe kwa sababu ni rafiki ya rais atukue boss yangu. Even some people wanamsaidia kazi, mapie yake, wanataka tukuniamurisha mimi vile nitafanya kazi. Inawezekana?
Just before the Gen Z-led protest in June, there was talk of ousting Gachagua as deputy president.
Gakigua tehe, turendaga kuigata Gachagua no tutirari na andu akuigana na riu tondu Raila ni arokire ri andu ake ODM mangioka tutukanire na itu nitukumuingata. Ni president akijira danajira ararehera ina na andu ake guka guthukia thirikari ka kunyingata. Matano ya itua. Matana cia ina cigine chari. Macoke kuria mundu athuriirwo. Tondu ni ire dithuritwo ni abunge. Ni thuritwo ni andu a Kenya.
And now talk of impeachment in his own words. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, in other news, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has urged Chief Justice Martha Koome to expedite the resolution of cases challenging the reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the IEBC.
Wetangula expressed concern over the looming constitutional crisis due to the absence of commissioners at the electoral body. And as Ben Kirui reports, civil society groups have joined in the call, arguing that the delay in the recruitment of new commissioners is compromising the commission's ability to fulfill its constitutional mandate and undermining Kenyans' rights to representation.
The continued delays in the recruitment process for the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC commissioners is causing concerns with the number of constituencies and wards remaining without representatives. Although the IEBC Secretariat is fully constituted, it cannot make key decisions that facilitate supervision of elections. The situation has been made worse by numerous court cases challenging the process. Hurdles National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula once removed.
I also want to appeal to the Chief Justice that all the cases that are in court legitimately challenging this process, please
fast-track them, give them priority so that we can be able to finish them and have an IEBC in place.
Speaking during a Sunday service at Chebukwa Catholic Church in Kabuchai constituency in Bungoma County, Wetangula voiced concerns about the lack of representation in various constituencies and wards, many of which remain vacant.
We also have many wards that have got vacancies that need to have by-elections. And as you know, the Supreme Court has directed that IEBC means commissioners and not the secretariat. So without commissioners, we cannot move.
Banisa constituency, for instance, has been without a member of parliament for months. A by-election is also to be held in Ugunja after President William Ruto appointed area MP Opiyo Wandayi to the cabinet as Synergy cabinet secretary. Civil society groups under the Uchaguzi platform says continued delays in appointment of the commission will deny Kenyans their right to representation.
Further to the NADCO bills, there are other electoral legislations that need to be fast-tracked.
The continued uncertainty on when to conduct the above-mentioned by-elections may lead to the disenfranchisement of the respective residents of these electoral areas.
Although President William Ruto signed the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024 into law on July 9, 2024, enabling the formation of the selection panel to recruit new commissioners, the process has stalled owing to delays in court process. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Despite disquiet expressed by Kenyans over the Adani deal, the government has continued with the process with the public participation for the takeover of Ketraco set for tomorrow.
That's right. Now, the Ministry of Energy and Ketraco is to hold a stakeholders conference on the private investment partnership despite the uproar it has elicited. In the meantime, Glory Assembly outreach bishops have called on the government to listen to Kenyans and halt the process.
Anahuzunika kusikia kwamba ile airport yetu ya JKI inaenda na Muhindi, na hapa nchi hii yetu ya Kenya kuna watu ambao Mungu amewabariki, wako na afya nzuri, wako na mali na wanaendeza kampuni zao vizuri sana mpaka zinaleta faida. Kwa nini watu kama hao, kama ni imefika kiwango hicho cha kupeana JKA airport, si tupatie Mkenya ambaye anaweza kuandika Wakenya wenzao, anaandika anafanya kazi akijua kwamba anafanyia taifa hili letu la Kenya.
All right, let's switch gears here and talk health. And the government may have plans to spend more than 6 billion shillings in the management of Mpox virus.
According to the Mpox Preparedness and Response Plan by the Ministry of Health, the funds will be distributed in 3 categories to contain local, regional and national outbreak of the deadly virus.
Now, with 5 cases having been contracted or confirmed so far, Principal Secretary for Public Health, Mary Muthoni, says that the country has stepped up its preparedness and response. Our very own Safin Acheng Oma has more.
With 5 confirmed positive cases of Mpox, Kenya is ramping up its preparedness and response to the deadly virus. Speaking during an assessment tour of Ilasit border post in Loitoktok and Namanga one-stop border point in Kajiado County, Public Health Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni confirmed an escalation of screening and response mechanisms to avert further spread, especially through the points of entry into the country.
Culminatively, we have screened more than 800,000 members of public and travelers in the points of entry. Our national laboratories, we have been able to send 150 samples.
The Ministry of Health has established a national Mpox preparedness and response plan which seeks to guide coordinated public health action to stop the Mpox outbreak in Kenya and reduce the risk of importation from neighboring countries that are experiencing outbreaks, including Uganda, DRC, Burundi and Rwanda. The plan, which will adopt a 3-tier response level system, will cost the taxpayer up to 6.7 billion shillings. Local containment of the spread will receive up to 1.7 billion shillings, which will be spent on, among others, community-based surveillance, capacity building of health workers, provision of assorted PPEs, sanitation supplies, enhancing screening and putting up temporary isolation spaces. Controlling the regional spread of mpox cases in less than 5 counties has been allocated about 2.3 billion shillings, with 941 million, which is a lion's share of the total budget, set to be spent on training of health workers. On controlling the national spread, which involves 5 or more counties, 2.6 billion shillings will be spent, out of which 191 million will be spent on sensitization of health workers, 90 million on contact tracing, 500 million on infection prevention, and 159 million on laboratory support. According to the plan, signed by P.S. Mudhoni and Acting Director General for Health, Dr. Sultani Matendechero, high-risk areas include Busia, Bungoma, Eldoret, Kisumu, Kericho, Nakuru, Kiambu, Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Makueni, Taita Taveta, and Mombasa County.
We are keen on risk communication. We have enhanced our communication, and that is why I'm also here to ensure that the multi-agency teams are working very, very closely.
The Ministry of Health is working closely with county governments and other agencies to strengthen preparedness at all border points. Safin Acheng Omar, Citizen TV.
All right, on that note, we're going to take our first break here on Sunday Live. Let you know there's plenty more ahead, including Ruto at 2.
The special reports, especially on the economic crisis.
And of course, our weekly segment, Citizen Planet. It's also coming out. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff.
At O Burrows, at Citizen TV Kenya.
Hashtag
Sunday Live.
Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back in the meantime. Coming up. Coming up, we focus on economic performance 2 years into President Ruto's presidency. It is exactly 34 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. Now, residents of Nairobi and its suburbs have raised concerns over excessive noise levels from clubs and churches in residential areas, which they say is causing them literally sleepless nights.
Of latest concern is the Quiver Steakhouse in Milimani, a few kilometers from State House, the military headquarters, and Nairobi Police County headquarters. Our investigative reporter, Francis O'Day, spent time with the residents of NSSF apartments to experience the agony the residents undergo at the hand of the noisy nightclub.
It's 12 midnight at Milimani Estate on Dennis Bridge Road, opposite State House. Revelers at Quiver Milimani, a popular nightclub, partying the night away. But at this estate, homeowners are agonizing. They have coped with noise from the entertainment joint. No sleep. We spent time with the residents to experience firsthand the distress they have to endure. This family with these young triplets live in the blocks facing the entertainment joint.
In the last 3 months, since they introduced the live band, these guys plays music up to past 3 a.m.
Sometimes my husband is away. I have to take care of the 3 babies. And when the noise is too much, I have to call him so that he can call the Quiver management to reduce the noise. but they never respond.
This in disregard to the fact that the joint is just a few meters from the State House on the upper side, the police commander's headquarters of Nairobi on the lower side, and the famous DOD military headquarters.
Now, we even do not understand who licensed this thing to be here. You see, so it's a whole problem here, and we do not want it anymore.
It is past midnight as we are speaking, and you see the level of the noise. You cannot sleep. As much as you try to gather some sleep, it is not possible.
The nightclubs and churches seem to take advantage of laxity by Nairobi County officials and NEMA in enforcing the noise pollution rules.
Kuna mtu hapa juu na si hapa tu, hizi manyumba zote na kule nyuma wanasema sauti inatoka hapo inafika kwa nyumba zao.
We have to do what's humanly right. We have to save those sick in their houses suffering, those young children, newborn children, those who want to do homework and go the following day in school. This is the time to save them.
Despite numerous complaints by the residents, the owners of Quiver Stick House appears undeterred.
What I have always requested Ruth that we do is maybe we can, I have always asked her if we can meet maybe at the time that she says that that noise level is a little bit high, so that we can say now, reduce it to this level and stick to that level. But my efforts to reach her has always been fruitless.
I even called NEMA.
Yes.
We put up the 4.1 level of noise to tell us at what level we should play within her limits.
We have Mr. Peter Mbugwa is the owner, and there's also another director called Mr. Alex somebody. You understand? Now, you talk to them, they tell you, okay, fine, we are reducing. They are acknowledging, actually, that that noise is there. You understand? But they're doing nothing about it.
Now, the sound that is emanating from the background is a sound that is coming from a joint within this residential area. Now, there are people that are asking questions. There are residents of this area asking questions. They have tried all the means to try and just make sure that there is no noise within this residential area. The question remains, who is behind this joint that is making noise within this residential area? It's called Steakhouse, within State House. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Have you been there?
No, I have not. Have you?
No.
Residents of Kiparambu and Taunat villages in Mgwen, Nandi County have been forced to use a tire tube to cross the dangerous River Yala each day to their various destinations.
That's right. Now, the move is brought about by failure by the relevant authorities to construct a bridge that would link the two villages. Let's get more from our very own Marianne Nyambura.
This is Taunet village, Kapkangani, Nandi County. Taunet and Kiparambu villages are separated by River Yala. A bridge that would link both villages has not been constructed, and residents found an alternative option, an inflated tire tube as their means of transportation. Samuel Kipto carries this inflated tire tube on his back. He's in a rush against time to ferry people to and from the two villages. Just after the rain subsided, Kipto and his counterpart, Efford Sogoi, came to the rescue of hundreds of residents of Kiparambu and Taunet to help them cross River Yala on a daily basis.
Tulianza hii kazi miaka 20 na zaidi iliyopita, na imekuwa ni kifukio kwa muda mrefu, ambapo imekuwa ni gharama ya chini, sio vile mtu anaweza zunguka mbali aende sokoni ama wapi, na hapa ndio kifukio cha karibu.
Watu wa ile sehemu ama sehemu hii akitaka kuenda ngambo ile ni lazima apitie hapa, kwa sababu daraja pali inapitwa ni mbali, ni kilomita mbali, na ndio sababu kuu ya sisi kutumia hiyo tube ya plastiki kuvukisha.
The distance apart is just 40 meters. Each trip takes approximately 3 minutes and residents only part with 10 shillings one way.
Mtoni inatusaidia kwa sababu ni karibu. Tukipita huko ni mbali, tunapita 200 lakini huku tunapita 10 bob.
According to residents, local leaders have over time made promises to construct a bridge that would link both villages. But little has been done to achieve this.
Kitambo anaiti sisi tazama takuja kuji. Mara katana kuja kupila kamata kura hivi anaenda. Huyu Tanganya sisi atakuja unda. Sinaona kwa njia kokono huko ni mbali njia yenyewe. Daraja hakuna.
The two operators who have been helping women, school-going children, the sick and even livestock cross the river say the business is risky during the rainy season and at night.
Katikati usiku wa manana amekuja kukuamusha, labda kuna jambo ya dharura imetokea, ni lazima tu nimpitishe. Hata huku kukuwa na wizi umefanyika, ni mimi ndio nitakuwa mtu wa kwanza kutafutwa hapa niambie kuja tuvukishe.
Si rahisi majanga zipatikane, mtu amepata shida, amekwama kwa maji ama ameuawa na maji, ni vigumu sana kupata hivyo. Na in case mtu anaweza patikana amekwama kwa maji ama namna gani, huwa tunaokoa. Tuko na ujuzi wa kutosha.
Miriam Nyambura, Citizen TV.
Would you take that floater?
Isn't it just crazy?
My God. Can you swim?
I can float. President William Ruto's 2 years in office have been marred by financial crises of unimaginable proportions, with all his government finance bills triggering nationwide protests and falling flat in the courts of law.
No, that's right. Now, from what has been termed what he termed as empty coffers when he assumed office, President Ruto's 2 years in office have been characterized by an astronomical rise in public debt. Once again, our very own Stephen Leto has the details.
Within 2 years into his term in office, the economy has proven the heaviest burden for President William Ruto. The fiscal deficit widened from 6.3% of GDP in 2022 to 7% in 2023 as revenues underperformed and interest cost rose.
The economic turbulence that we are in demand more than a manifesto that makes a catalogue of pledges that, if implemented, could push the country beyond the tipping point. It requires a credible economic turnaround plan, a plan that gives Kenyans credible and realistic hope.
Public debt expanded from 66.7% of GDP in 2022 to 70.2% in 2023, driven by increased loans to finance the primary deficit and by exchange rate depreciation. However, Kenya's economy grew 5.2% in 2023, up from 4.8% in 2022.
In many respects, Kenya has improved. But that is not to say that we are where we want to be. Because, Leto, I should not be spending a lot of time to convince you that the GDP has grown by 5.6%. I should also not be belaboring the point of the fact that inflation has come down.
The government of Kenya will make sure the Ministry of Agriculture is working round the clock to make sure that every farmer gets the requisite fertilizer before the season is over.
In his economic rebound plan, President Ruto promised to revive the Kenyan economy, improve food production, and provide quality infrastructure, education, and healthcare services. Public debt is also on the rise. In December 2022, Kenya's public debt stood at 9.1 trillion Kenyan shillings, a 5% increase from the 8.7 trillion shillings reported by the Central Bank of Kenya when Ruto's administration took over in September 2022. The total public debt as at end of January 2024 was 11.2 trillion Kenyan shillings, representing 69.7% of GDP.
1.008 trillion Kenya shillings on payments of interest rates alone for our debt obligations. You can imagine that if we are spending only half of the money we are spending to service debts, only on interest rates, that will be having a spare of 500 billion to go into roads, to go into electricity, to go into other infrastructural needs for our economy. And we got into this problem because maybe we demanded to do too much within so short a time. That in the 10 years between 2012 and 2022, we accumulated debts of over 8 trillion shillings.
Recently, Ruto has outlined plans to limit borrowing, increase the government's revenue and cut spending as a mitigation measure, but all these found a stubborn appetite in government. 2 years after assuming office, Kenya's debt has been described as sustainable, with high risk of debt distress according to IMF.
But I am glad that we have not fallen off the cliff, as we have seen many African countries do. We saw Zambia trying to renegotiate. And when you hear about renegotiating alone, it is another name of saying we are defaulting. We have seen Ethiopia doing the same. They are currently on an IMF bailout program. So I am glad that even when we are in a tight corner, the way we have been, we have not fallen off the cliff. That we have been able to service our debts, both domestically and foreign. And we can only hope for the best as we proceed.
President Ruto's administration has found itself at loggerheads with the public, with mostly its tax policies met with resistance and protest. The 2023 finance bill was opposed by the Azimio la Umoja coalition, with Raila Odinga leading his troops in street battles seeking to have the bill dropped. Edify and Ruto signed it into law. Then came the Finance Bill 2024 that triggered nationwide protest led by youthful protesters. The Finance Bill that was to finance the 2024-2025 financial year budget was taken through a public participation process, with nearly all stakeholders opposing the new taxes on various products. Despite the public rejection, MPs passed the bill, worsening an already bad situation on the streets. The climax of the protest being the storming of Parliament by the Gen Z's protesters who wanted to evict MPs from the chambers. Sadly, the lawmakers had just made the final vote few minutes before protesters broke into Parliament. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
On Ruto at 2, and from promises to increase funding, employ more teachers, develop school infrastructure and implement curriculum changes, the education sector has been a full plate for President William Ruto.
2 years down the line, what is the state of the education promise? Safina Chengoma takes a look at President Ruto's education scorecard.
We must get it right. On the campaign trail to become Kenya's 5th president,
Yani munasema bottom up.
William Ruto promised a raft of ambitious reforms across the education sector. From early childhood up to the tertiary levels, Ruto aimed for a complete makeover of the education sector, a plan education experts saw as a tall order.
The current government inherited an education sector that was in a downward spiral. The problem is that they made huge promises. They made people think that after 2022 we will enter the land of milk and honey, and they either did not have a full understanding of the extent of the problem, or they had that understanding but they just wanted to win an election and they didn't care what happens after that. And so because of that, they have largely been unable to stem the downward spiral of the education sector.
Na ni dhahiri shahiri kwamba anakuwa amri jeshi mkuu wa majeshi yote ya ulinzi ya Kenya.
When he became president, the implementation of the competency-based curriculum was floating midstream, having been introduced by the Uhuru Ruto administration. Earlier, as candidate in the 2022 election, Ruto appeared hesitant on the CBC system with his Kenya Kwanza education charter pledging a review of the curriculum should he assume power.
The issues that have been identified by teachers, by parents, by students and other stakeholders can be subjected to a robust public conversation.
And within weeks of taking office, President Ruto appointed a wide-ranging mandated presidential working party on education reforms.
I am very happy that we now have a credible plan.
What is going to determine whether that presidential working party was a positive or a negative is what we implement out of the recommendations they made. The recommendations that if we implement will help stem the downward spiral of the education sector. The recommendations that if we implement will accelerate the downward spiral.
The task force, chaired by Professor Munavu, also recommended a complete overhaul of the existing education funding framework. In its place, a new funding model known as the Student-Centered Higher Education Funding Model was introduced, and it categorizes students in 5 bands ranging from those who are extremely vulnerable to the less needy. But the proposed model has not been well received.
I've been placed in a band that I don't know whether my parents will afford that, because there's no particular job that my parents are doing.
That's a child who has qualified to go to the university can be there crying, saying, look, I've been put in band 5. Is it band 5? When I ought to be in band 1, and therefore I cannot afford to go to the university. And when you follow, you find the person, the child of a well-to-do family has been put in band 1.
We want to see that a vulnerable student is placed in band 1 where they exist. A student that has capacity to pay has to be placed in band 3.
And I want to tell students that we are going to fight on. This is just a postponement of a matter that we are giving the government the last chance.
The pilot cannot tell you we have taken off from the airport, and so we must go even though one of the engines of the plane has collapsed. You come back to the runway. Yeah. So right now, for the funding model, we must go back to the runway.
On the human resource front, industrial action by the teachers' unions has become the most recent challenge for the 2-year Ruto administration as the welfare question among teachers became prominent.
We have deputy principals serving in acting capacity, and they don't want to be told. They don't even want to pay them special allowance.
Tunaomba tume ya walimu iache madharau. CBA ilikuwa ni maelewano na maelewano lazima yatimizwe.
After the teachers, university lecturers have issued a notice of an intention to go on strike, raising the prospects of protracted turbulence in the education sector. As he begins his 3rd year of office, President William Ruto's entry seems full, considering the myriad of challenges still bedeviling the education sector, a sector he had promised to turn into a formidable hub of skill to fulcrum his development and economic agenda. Kenyans also hope that his promise to ensure access to quality education for all is not just a promise. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV, Nairobi.